see everybody. It's exciting to be here. It's exciting to catch up. And I know that the pandemic changed so many things for so many people. Men stopped shaving, lawyers stopped wearing suits. I got my cowboy body, belly in the front, in the back. But it also was a time for change. One of my goals in life, I'd originally gone to college to write, and one of my goals was to put together a book. And so today I'm going to tell you where it started, how it happened, and where we are right now. When I originally started the idea of writing a book, I wanted to write something that I could use for a speaking career. I wanted to write a motivational book of some sort. I wanted to put together something, 10 reasons to be a better person in one shape or another. I ran into a wonderful mentor by the name of Aurora Winter, and she has guided me through this process. And so we started that process and started working on the book. It was going to be advice to young lawyers, advice to young professionals, how to put together a career as demanding as that and still keep track of yourself and your family. And I was excited to be a motivational speaker. And then one day I was on the Zoom with Aurora and she looked at me and she said, "You know what? You're not really very motivational right now." Took that to heart. She said, "But you've told me a couple of stories and they're important to you. So let's just write those. Let's see what happens with those." One of them, as you know, was the story of my youngest child, how we went through infertility, how we went through all the trials and tribulations to bring young Peyton into the world. So I wrote that story. The next one was my very first trial with Edwin Kimbrell, who ends up as Emmett Kendrick in the book. That was very, very foundational for me as a lawyer because I learned the dignity of everybody, even an old man in solitary confinement. So I wrote those two stories as actual stories. They weren't fictional. They were going to be the basis for a motivational book again. Then one day Aurora got on the phone and she said, "You know what? I think it's better as a novel. And what we're going to do is we're going to take both stories and we're going to pull them together and interleave them just like weaving or shuffling the cards of a deck, one chapter after another." So we did that. We spent the next several months putting together this book, coming together with a spine of a chronology, if you will, so that we could get the stories to interact, fictionalizing things where we needed to, so I didn't get sued for malpractice for talking about a client. And we put that story together. And then we had a book. Well, the next thing you have to do is figure out what you're going to do with it. How do you publish it? The normal way you publish a book is that you write it, and then you spend the next few years begging for an editor and a publisher to take it up. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to reverse engineer it. So I've gone through the mechanics of actually putting together my own press. Many of you know my pigs, Zeus and Oliver. My own publishing press is called Whistling Pigs Press. I had to do things such as figure out who could design a logo, who could put it together, so that those things are there for marketing, but also going through just the basics of putting together the business so that I can have a bank account under Whistling Pigs Press. So if the book ever sells, maybe 1 or 2 copies, that 15 or 20 cents can be mine. Then you have to figure out how you're going to publish. One of the greatest things that has happened, and one of the things that anybody who wants to write a book should know of, is the actual democratization of publishing. Kindle Direct Publishing has changed the world. 50% of all best-selling authors these days are self-published through KDP. The electronic book that goes directly to your Kindle costs almost nothing to produce, just a few nanoseconds in time. If you want a paperback book, you can get that printed the moment you order it, and it arrives 3 or 4 days later. They've taken away from the publishing houses the total gatekeeper function and power to hold authors back. If you have a vision, if you want to put together a book, you can find a mentor. You can write the book. You can put it on Kindle, and other people can share what you do and how you do it. Are there a million things to learn? Absolutely. You have to learn all about social media. You have to learn about keywords. You have to learn about ads. You have to learn about all these websites that you never even thought about. Goodreads, BookBubs, rocket launchers. But they're all available. They're all there for you to have at any particular time, and anybody can do it. So where are we going in the future with the book? How am I going to get to where I want to be? Well, the book officially launches on the 11th. So we'll see. Nothing might happen. It could be an absolute abyss. We'll see. We have the very first copies are actually available. We launched the paperback and the hardback a few days early to make sure all the kinks on Kindle are worked out. We have Kindle Unlimited ready to go, which means that anybody that has the subscription on Kindle gets the book. At that particular point, then it becomes just an effort of marketing. How many reviews can you get? How many reviews can you get from verified purchasers who actually purchased the book? How many reviews can you get outside from third-party reviewers that are actual professional reviewers? Kirkus Review, Literary Titan, others. I'm pleased to say through the marketing efforts that we've been able to already win several awards with the book. And I say we because without Aurora, without the mentor, just like in Toastmasters, without those to pull us along, those who have the knowledge how to make us better, there are really no dreams that you can make true. It's hard to do it on your own. But we've already won 2 American Fiction Awards, Literary Titan Silver Medal, and a Firebird. So like I said, the book may disappear like a fart in the wind, maybe the next great rage. But I can tell you that the courage to do the book, the courage to even think that I would have something to say that's important to other people begins in this room. With every single one of you. The people that were here August 2015, when I walked in a little bit broken and a little bit scared about talking in front of people. All of you, every one of you is a piece of this book. And I want to say thank you from my heart. Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stockham. Michael is not the first person in this club to have published a book. The senior members will help me. And of course, our own Letitia Ferrara had published a book on, guess what?
Eclipses maybe.
What?
Maybe eclipses.
Maybe eclipses. Sure it is. Small change. Our next speaker, Mark Siegel, DTM, joined Toastmasters International in April 1982, 40 years ago. He transferred his home club affiliation to Executive Toastmasters in 2002. During that time, he has served this club in every officer role. He has founded a corporate club and mentored the local IRS Toastmaster Club here in Addison. Good job, Mark. Did you get those taxes down? Today, Mark will highlight his experiences with Toastmasters in a speech entitled "From Seattle to Miami, Executive Toastmasters is the best." Help me welcome Mark.
How many of you have ever received a phone call from the Internal Revenue Service and your response to them was, "Oh man, thanks for calling." It really means a lot. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. My speech today is going to focus on my experience individually as a Toastmaster and why. And it all began on Wednesday, March 25th. I was at a group meeting, or actually a regional meeting with my employer. There were 61 of us in our audience, and he looked at us and he said to us, if any of you ever want to be promoted, you will be in Toastmasters. I'd never heard of Toastmasters. Plus, I was afraid of speaking in front of a bunch of people. Anyway, there was no Toastmasters.org back then. I had to go to the city council, find out where the chapters were located. And I found one that met on Friday mornings. As someone who travels extensively, I hated Friday travel. It was a breakfast meeting, which is good because I generally am entertaining someone for lunch, and dinner, I want to be home. It was a breakfast meeting on Friday mornings. It was Eagle Toastmasters that meets over on Central Expressway and on Central Expressway. Anyway, I started with them, and I was with them for a number of years, served every position, but it did not have the camaraderie that I was looking for. Sure, it gave me the experience, but I was one of many individuals rather than a member of an organization. That's when I started viewing other chapters. Oh, by the way, March 25th, I had my first meeting. April 2nd, the following Friday, or whatever the date was, I gave my icebreaker speech right away. I have visited chapters, as the title of my speech emphasizes, throughout the country. There was one chapter that only had 4 people in it. They met at a table, and when they did the Pledge of Allegiance, they faced the window because there was a fire hydrant across their station across the street with a flag, and that's how they did their flag. When I discovered Executive Toastmasters, the very first thing that I realized is I was at home. Because Toastmasters, this club, is not a group of individuals. It's a collection. It's a family that helps one another. Yes, every one of you joined Toastmasters to improve your speaking skills. No doubt about that. But being a member, one of your combined commitments is to help others. While Executive Toastmasters, I witnessed one speaker who got up to give his icebreaker, and he stuttered, and he stopped, and he started over again. And the same thing happened the second time. He started over again. He couldn't get past that first opening that he had rehearsed so many times, obviously. And he sat down. This club came together to give him the incentive to improve. That's why he was here. 2.5 years later, he got second place in a speech contest. I have seen people join this club that were proficient in their speaking skills. And I saw them advance beyond their own expectations. To be part of this organization, as opposed to every chapter I have visited, from Seattle to Miami. I'm using my semantic abilities here. It's different in so many ways. They're the same in so many ways. But one of the major differences that puts us above all of the others, that puts executive above all of the others, is that we're in it together. And it's just something that I miss, and I very well may cease to miss.
Hey, Mark. Mark, I would welcome for his inspirational and his speeches that bring us together as a family and remind that it takes more than one person to become better. Our final speaker requires a little bit more introduction, and we seem to be having time. When I joined Executive Toastmasters in 1999, there were two curmudgeons, old men who were a little cranky. I'm going to mention George Crawford, DTM first. He was a senior citizen. He was a retired oil equipment salesman, and he was good. And he was also very clear about the Toastmaster will wear a jacket. So I am wearing this jacket today in honor of George. The second curmudgeon in 1999, Bob Maher, ATMS, which is a previous qualification score, was already a senior member, having joined Executive Toastmasters sometime in the 70s. He told us about how things happened back there during the swinging single days. I never believed it. But Bob has always been a shining example to me and other members. It's hard to put into words, but he's the one that originated in table topics what I really wanted to talk about. Which means he didn't like our question at all. And then Lisa Zahn's young son at the time gave him my favorite nickname for Bob, Gnarly Bob. So coming now to give us a speech of his own devising, please help me welcome Bob Maher with his speech, Change is Inevitable.
I hope the videographer is prepared to watch me move around the room. I have to use those somatic skills as well. But my preference is to connect with individual people. My profession has been helping people within their careers for over 40 years. Now, when people ask me now, am I retired? I don't know how to answer the question. Retirement has changed. What I've learned in my profession is that change is inevitable, but personal development is still a matter of choice. And Toastmasters is a primary example of this. If you follow the Toastmasters way, even the new way, you can become a good public speaker. If you listen to your evaluators, if you move along with the program and go through the books, you will become a competent speaker. But to really develop as a person is what turns me on. To watch people that come in with no skill and get to the skilled part, that's the easy part of Toastmastering. But to get to the confidence to do strange and awkward things. I remember one time I actually started my speech from the back of the room.
Better.
My back to the audience, because I wanted to make the point of what does the listener hear in a speech, not what I'm giving in a speech, but what does the listener hear and see in a speech? Great job, videographer. But that all isn't what I want to talk about today. That's best talked about by Mark. Michael is a primary example of this. He and the other old white man over there, getting a little paunchy, are great storytellers. And to see Michael develop into more of a motivational mode is just terrific for me this morning. He's a terrific storyteller, those of you that know his speaking style. But to turn that into a more motivational mode is just something else. from my professional viewpoint, that's what kept me in my profession for over 40 years. Now, to Mark's point about this club and watching people developing personally. This club started with a bunch of stodgy old men that just wanted to get together and talk about fishing stories and hunting stories, as we've already been reminded about. But then they had the good sense to expand that definition of what they wanted to accomplish in Toastmastering. They had the good sense to be one of the first clubs in Dallas to allow women to join. Ooh. And because they were executives and lawyers by profession, they were able to get in some pretty powerful women in the beginning. Mary Frances Burleson comes right to mind. A lady that started as the secretary to Evie Halliday and became the president. Yeah, change is inevitable, but that personal development is a real choice. A real choice that we all have. Do we want to go beyond what we think is good to develop the confidence to have an excellence in speaking? The club moved on. How did we develop? Well, one thing about Toastmastering is that you can have a completely good meeting with no interaction at all. As a single person, I needed to meet women. So I started having, let's stay after the meeting and have some coffee. We didn't know what to do with holiday meetings. We started special meetings where we just all sat around a table and shared personal things. This club has done that because individuals have been willing to take that extra step. And that's why I drove the 100 miles to come here from Tyler by God, Texas. I moved in retirement. I made a clean cut from Dallas traffic and size. And I'm glad I did that. I've developed as a person. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Bob. Let's thank all our prepared speakers today by giving them another round of applause. I'll now ask our timer to tell us if our speaker is qualified.
All speakers qualified.
All speakers qualified for a time. We are not doing voting today. We thought that would be an extra complication to get voting slips out to all the members that were here physically, as well as counting votes online, but that'll be in a future meeting, I'm sure. It's now time for what I consider the most interesting part of a Toastmaster meeting, because you never know what's going to happen. Please help me welcome our table topics master today, Lisa Zahn.
Mr. Toastmaster, it's so good to see everyone here. I'm delighted. And